Ahoy and welcome back to another video. Today I'm finally getting around to reviewing Donkey Kong Bananza. I just finished 100%ing it this last week. I have seen tons of people's thoughts on the game and thought it's time to give my own thoughts on the game. There has been some very high praise and I also like it a whole lot, but I do think that there are some issues to bring up. Maybe you could say some things that drove me bananas. So, quick level setting. I love 3D platformers. I tend to really gel with what Nintendo puts out, especially the 3D Mario team. Mario Odyssey is one of my favorite games ever made, so naturally there was a lot I loved about Bonanza. Although, this pedigree also highlighted some of Bonanza's shortcomings for me. I do not think this game stands shoulder to shoulder with Odyssey or even Galaxy. I still think it's fantastic, but some things didn't quite hit for me like I would have liked them to. Let's get into all that. If I had to pick one thing about this game that I think Nintendo nailed without question, it would be the movement. DK feels quick and agile, his jump feels really good, climbing things so fast makes me appreciate all the hours I spent slowly climbing things in Breath of the Wild. One of my favorite moves in Mario Odyssey was the diving hat bounce to get tons of extra horizontal movement, and Bonanza has its equivalent with the roll, jump, roll that's just so quick and easy to pull off but still feels so satisfying. Ripping chunks from the ground and bashing in walls or enemies with those rocks feels very powerful, and the options you have with those chunks being able to essentially double jump or to turf surf on top of them over some rough terrain, or just being able to put a combination of all these tools together to traverse huge gaps that you don't even really need to cross really helps bring out the expressive platformer flavor that makes a game like this so fun to experiment with and beat in your own way. I have already been seeing clips of people absolutely breaking this game with the movement mechanics, and I cannot wait till this game starts showing up at GDQs. I think the speedrunning community for this game is going to be absolutely awesome to watch. But what do you use all this crazy movement for? Is it just to run around and get to the end of an area? Or is it to have a lot more fun while running around like a madman grabbing collectibles? There are two main collectibles in the game, the Banandium gems, or bananas, which are used to unlock skills, and then the fossils, which are used to unlock costumes. These are both littered about the stages pretty liberally, and you're pretty much always in eyesight of something to smash through and collect. I don't necessarily think they were randomly placed though. It felt like there was often at least some logic to where they were hidden, even if sometimes I was stumbling into them while digging underground. I started to get a feel for the places the game wanted me to poke around, interesting looking cliff faces, the tip top or very bottom of a structure. It felt like the truly random ones were not as common, and those could be found with a few quick sonar smacks to see through the walls as you pass by. There is a big emphasis on the digging and destruction if you want to find everything though. You will often be rewarded with treasure chests containing maps to unfound fossils and bananas while digging through all the dirt and stone that make up the terrain. I would often find myself in these loops of like a zen flow state of just destroying things, stacking up maps, which is very satisfying for me, but sometimes this clearing out of the terrain would tip from Power Wash Simulator satisfaction to more of a mindless what I've been doing for the last 10 minutes. I would get caught in the loop, but I sometimes feel like how when you're scrolling on your phone doing YouTube Shorts for a while, thinking, what have I actually been doing for the last 10 minutes or so? Please watch my shorts though, they're super engaging, I'm different, I promise. The titular Bonanzas are what really make this game shine in my opinion. The first one you get is Kong Bananza, which is basically just Super Saiyan DK. I spent loads of time with Kong Bananza just running around smashing stuff, and it was probably my favorite one to use until one of the later ones that ended up being my actual favorite by far. These transformations made me feel powerful, sometimes unstoppable, and it felt like I had a full gauge ready at all times, so I did not feel the need to conserve them at all. DK's toolkit felt really well rounded with these in my back pocket. Even if it made the game easy and let me cheese some game sections, I think the rule of cool was a governing factor here. Bonanza-ing is just so fun, and also the Bonanza music themes are consistently some of the best tracks in the game. As far as the different levels, or as they're called in this game, layers go, I think there was a solid mix. You have your standard stuff with the forest level and the ice level and the beach level, etc., but they did a good job of giving each of these places neat new mechanics that help them stand out more than just visually. There are also a few more unique level sets in the back half of the game if that worries you. I do wish there was a bit more dedicated platforming in each of these worlds though. Most of the levels are more about exploration rather than just platforming focused, which was fun, but it rarely felt like I was ever in danger of missing a jump. While the main paths in each world may not be full of dedicated platforming challenges, you will get some of that flavor in the sub-levels that are scattered about. I enjoyed these for the most part. There was a lot of them, but I felt like they made me stretch my legs a little bit more than what I was doing in the overworlds. Every once in a while, these levels would present themselves in the form of a 2D platformer throwback level, and I really enjoyed these. They changed up the pace and presentation enough to keep things fresh, and there were welcome nods back to previous games. The only complaint I had with these is there was not nearly enough of them. A small handful spread out throughout the whole game, just giving me a taste, while most of the side levels were in the same gray, sterile space. Part of me thought this theming made sense to keep the attention on the task at hand, not trying to distract with any backgrounds, but I grew tired of the same old setting when entering these levels in the latter half of the game. There were also combat challenges versions of the sublevels, but 90% of the time these were just over before they even got started. Just switch to Kong Bananza and bash all the enemies in 5 seconds and then you get your banana. I was disappointed with these overall, even if there were a handful that made me think or had an interesting twist. An overwhelming majority of them were just Kong Bananza, punch, and it's over. Bosses are one area of Bonanza I am most conflicted on. I think, positive side, there are a good amount of bosses that show up at a good cadence and can be fun ways to cap off each layer, but the sad thing is, I would say over half of these bosses just die way too quickly. It's a shame too, because a lot of the bosses had neat mechanics that would have made for a fun fight, but all too often they fell victim to the might of Kong Bananza, just like most of the combat in this game. There are obviously outliers to this, namely the endgame stuff. It's all very fun and presents a solid challenge. I do think overall, Bonanza really lacked the really big moments, something like Odyssey did. Most big moments were a lead up to a boss fight, and then the boss would not really live up to the moment, and it would diminish that overall feeling a bit. You know, the end sequence of the game is excellent, but I feel like it could have used something in the middle to really help flesh out the overall experience of the game. To bring up Odyssey again, I don't think it really had that New Donk City sequence that it had. There were some moments in Bonanza with some returning characters that I was really looking forward to seeing again, but those moments of those characters really didn't live up to the moment. Speaking of letdowns, let's talk music. Sure, as mentioned, each Bonanza theme is a banger. Tell me you can't listen to Zebra Bonanza and not want to sing along with it. Outside of that though, most of the music in the stages felt very unmemorable. It almost felt like the music direction went the route of like Breath of the Wild with more of a subtle background tracks rather than something like Mario Odyssey. Remember Steam Gardens? None of the levels, in-level music in this game ever felt like it had that same energy that was all over the place in Odyssey. Fossil Falls, New Donk City, Lake Lamode. Outside of the end sequence, which does have great music, the Bonanza themes, which are bangers, the background music for the most part of this game is just kind of whatever. Quick warning here, I will be getting into the post-game content in this section, and this is another place I feel like Bonanza did not quite deliver as much as I would have liked. I would say 90% of the post-game content comes from either combat challenges and the rehearsal platforming challenges that test your skills with each Bonanza. The other 10% of new content is just a few small things added here and there to get a couple more bananas in each stage, mainly reserved for stuff like wearing a certain costume for one of the rock people to get a banana, but onto the actual content. I'll start with the negative side to get it over with. The combat challenges in Boss Rush post-game, in my opinion, was still a bit too easy. I beat both of these without any real pushback, and even though there were some new wrinkles, they were rehashes of other challenges and boss fights. I was hoping for some more unique boss fights, but that was not there. On a more positive note, the main chunk of the post-game comes from the rehearsals, where you have to revisit each Bonanza Elder and do a series of challenge levels with them. I thought these were actually a pretty fun challenge, nothing super difficult, but definitely made you prove you knew how to use each ability the Bonanzas offered. There's also one final challenge at the very end, similar to, but much, much easier than Darker Side of the Moon from Odyssey, a longer gauntlet level that is meant to be the final test for you. To be honest, I was not expecting this to be the final challenge when I was playing through it. With all the extra apple juice I had on me, I was able to get through this on my first try with no real issues, sadly. Now I'm going to get into show some few screenshots here of things I thought were cool you get for finishing some of these late game challenges 100% of this game. So if you're still working towards that, this is your warning. Like Odyssey, most of your rewards are small visual changes. First one is this giant gold DK statue you get for finishing all the Grumpy Kong stuff. He is back in the starting area once you beat the game, and you gotta supply him with like 150,000 gold or something close to that, and he builds this for you. After finishing the last challenge in the game, you get a nice golden thank you and a new end credits image. These last two, I think, are for getting all non-Banandium coin bananas, so not necessarily 1,000 bananas, but you get a 3rd star in your save file, and all the balloons that save Donkey Kong when you fall off the level turn into Donkey Kong's face. I think the only real reward for getting 1,000 bananas, though, is being able to unlock all the skills in the skill tree, which takes exactly 1,000 bananas to do so. Also, just to point this out, this was an extremely obnoxious thing to grind for. I find myself needing like 3,000 Banandium coins once I got to this point to get to the 1,000 mark. And I spent 2 hours grinding combat challenges and then almost 20 minutes of mashing the A button to buy 1 banana at a time from the chip exchange. I think my biggest complaint in all of these rewards, though, is I was really hoping for a Donkey Kong 64 skin, similar to the Mario 64 skin in Odyssey. I was legit kind of bummed out that that did not happen, and overall the costumes were a bit of a disappointment altogether. I wish they had some more callbacks to older games. All in all, I still think Bonanza was one of my favorite games of the year so far, maybe my favorite Nintendo game since Tears of the Kingdom a few years back, but I don't think this is necessarily an all-timer for me that's gonna like make my top 25 list or anything. I spent a good bit of time in this video highlighting its flaws, but I still do love this game a hell of a lot. I think I kind of landed on like a 9 out of 10 for this game, which might sound higher than some of my criticisms from the video. The moments I did like, I did really enjoy, which did carry me through the game. But if you made it this far, thanks for watching. Leave a like on the video if you want. Consider subscribing if you want to see more videos in the future. But yeah, that's all I got. So thanks for watching. And we'll see you next time.